Rows of white chairs adorned with delicate ribbons lined the pathway leading to a beautiful arch draped with cascading flowers. Friends and family greeted one another with warm hugs and laughter. Charles, the groom, stood at the altar, beaming with anticipation. His suit was sharp, and his smile radiated joy as he envisioned his future with Jessica. For months he had looked forward to this day and meticulously planned every detail to ensure it would be perfect. Young Marcus, Charles' 12-year-old son, stood off to the side. Marcus clutched a small box tightly while everyone else reveled in the day. The weight of it felt heavier than any physical burden. It was a heart-shaped diamond necklace, a precious heirloom passed down from his late mother. Marcus' heart ached. He remembered the last moments he spent with her. They felt like a lifetime ago, yet remained vividly etched. The scene shifted in Marcus' mind to the quiet, sunlit room where his mother had spent her final days. In that intimate space, his mother's frail figure lay in bed, her face pale yet serene. "Marcus, come here, sweetie." Despite her weakened state, the strength in her gaze captivated him. He approached her bedside, his heart heavy with worry. "Mom, are you going to be okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. She smiled softly. Her expression shifted, a mix of sadness and determination crossing her face. "I will always be with you, Marcus. No matter what happens, you must remember that love is our greatest gift. Protect it. Honor it." Her battle with illness was evident, yet she exuded a quiet strength that Marcus admired. As he watched her, tears welled in his eyes. He did not want to lose her. He could not bear the thought of a world without his mother's warmth and wisdom. "I promise, Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I will take care of it." She reached for the small box on her nightstand with a trembling hand. Inside lay the heart-shaped diamond necklace, sparkling with a brilliance that seemed to defy the darkness surrounding them. "This is a piece of me, a reminder of our love. Always keep it close to your heart." He took the box from her, his fingers brushing against the soft velvet. "I will, I promise." The memory faded, leaving Marcus with a heavy heart. As he stood there, he felt the weight of his mother's words pressing down on him. He glanced at the joyous guests, their laughter ringing in his ears, but his spirit was clouded with worry. Jessica, the woman about to become his stepmother, had always treated him with indifference at best. Snide remarks about his interests and dismissive comments about his feelings made him feel small and unwanted. How could his father be so blind to the way she belittled him? As the guests took their seats and the music began to play, signaling the start of the ceremony, Marcus' heart raced. He felt a strong urge to speak up and reveal the truth in the tiny box he held. The necklace inside wasn't just a material possession. It represented a connection to his mother, a symbol of love he desperately wanted to protect. He watched Jessica walk down the aisle, radiant in her elegant gown. Her smile was bright, but something about it felt rehearsed, almost calculated. How she held her head high and tossed her hair over her shoulder struck a nerve in Marcus. As Charles gazed at Jessica, his face glowing with admiration, Marcus felt a pang of longing. He wished for nothing more than to see his father happy, but he feared that such happiness would come at the cost of his well-being. The ceremony unfolded around him, and Marcus fought to remain composed. He could not allow his emotions to consume him, not today. He had to honor his mother's memory and stand firm in the face of deceit. As the officiant began to speak, Marcus' thoughts swirled. He knew he had to protect his mother's legacy to ensure Jessica's indifference would not overshadow her wisdom and love. The weight of his promise hung heavy in the air, urging him to take action. He gripped the box tighter, knowing he would have to confront the truth, no matter the cost. Marcus took a deep breath as the vows began, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He could feel the day's energy shifting, the illusion of perfection beginning to unravel. He was determined to honor his mother's love, even if it meant facing the storm about to break. Not long ago, Charles introduced Marcus to Jessica, presenting her with enthusiasm that gave the young boy hope. She was charming, her laughter infectious, and for a moment Marcus felt excited to welcome her into their lives. They shared smiles and pleasant conversations, and he dared to dream that she might be the companion his father had longed for since his mother's passing. However, it did not take long for the facade to crack. Marcus noticed subtle shifts in Jessica's demeanor as weeks turned into months. At first it was the little things, dismissive comments about his interests, a raised eyebrow when he spoke about his hobbies. "Boys like you should be more interested in sports than those silly games," she would say, brushing off his passions. Each comment chipped away at his self-esteem, leaving him feeling small and inadequate. During family gatherings, Marcus witnessed Jessica's true nature. She often made snide remarks under her breath, aiming to belittle him while pretending to be the perfect fiancé. "Why can't he be more like the other kids?" she would sneer to Charles, who would chuckle, not realizing how those words cut deep into Marcus' heart. The more Marcus watched, the more anxious he became. Each time he saw his father with Jessica, he felt a more profound dread. It was as if his mother's spirit whispered warnings in his ear, reminding him of the importance of protecting their family legacy. Marcus' awareness of Jessica's true character heightened as the wedding day approached. He had caught her rolling her eyes when he shared his latest drawing or smirking when he struggled to kick a soccer ball in the backyard. The mean-spirited comments blurred the lines between playful teasing and outright cruelty. He felt invisible, trapped in a bubble of anxiety as he observed his father falling for someone who did not value their bond. Back at the wedding venue, Marcus stood frozen in place as the ceremony began. The vibrant flowers that adorned the altar and the smiling faces of the guests seemed to mock his growing fears. He felt a knot in his stomach, conflicted between wanting his father to be happy and his instinct to protect their family legacy from someone he knew did not appreciate it. As Jessica walked down the aisle, Marcus fought to suppress his emotions. She looked radiant in her elegant gown, but he could see through the facade. The way she carried herself and the forced smile felt contrived. At that moment, a wave of determination washed over him. His mother had taught him to stand up for truth and to honor genuine love. With every step she took toward the altar, Marcus' resolve hardened. He felt the energy in the room shift as Charles focused solely on Jessica, blissfully unaware of the turmoil within his son. It struck Marcus that his father was blinded by love, unable to see the subtle ways Jessica undermined their relationship. Why can't he see it? Marcus thought, panic rising within him. The guests' laughter mingled with the soft music, creating an unsettling contrast to the storm brewing in his heart. He felt as if he were trapped in a nightmare where everyone else was oblivious to the truth. With tears threatening to spill, Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, and he understood that this was his moment to reveal the truth. He could not let the wedding proceed without voicing his concerns. He glanced down at the small box in his hands, feeling the coolness of the velvet against his palm. The heart-shaped diamond necklace held memories of love, loyalty, and family. It was a piece of his mother's spirit, and he was determined not to let it fade into obscurity. With his heart racing, he stepped forward, breaking free from the shadows as he approached the couple. A sense of clarity washed over him. He would not allow fear to dictate his actions any longer. Today, he would stand up for his mother's memory. Charles looked deeply into Jessica's eyes, his smile infectious. "I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you," he said, his voice steady and confident. The words seemed to float in the air, carrying an illusion of happiness that felt increasingly suffocating to Marcus. He could feel the emotional barrier closing in, as if the venue's walls were pressing against him, making it hard to think straight. The moment he stretched out in slow motion. As Jessica prepared to say, "I do," Marcus' resolve hardened. He had witnessed enough of her mean-spiritedness, the way she belittled him and dismissed his feelings. How could his father be so blind to the truth? This was not just about his father's happiness, but about protecting the legacy of love that his mother had fought to instill in him. Marcus stepped forward just before Jessica opened her mouth to utter the sacred words. The crowd fell silent as their eyes turned toward him. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat resonating with the urgency of his choice. "No," he shouted, the word escaping his lips before he could fully comprehend the implications of his outburst. Charles turned, confusion washing over his face. "Marcus?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Jessica looked equally surprised, her expression morphing from joy to uncertainty instantly. The moment hung in the air, charged with tension as the crowd awaited his next move. Marcus felt the heat of embarrassment creeping up his cheeks, but he pushed through it. "You can't marry her," he exclaimed, pointing an accusing finger at Jessica. "She doesn't care about us. She only wants your money." Gasps rippled through the audience, murmurs of shock and disbelief flooding the air. Jessica's face twisted in anger, her eyes narrowing as she stepped forward, attempting to regain control of the situation. "Marcus, this is not the time or place for your nonsense," she shot back, her voice dripping with disdain. "You are just a child who doesn't understand what love is." But Marcus could not let her words deter him. "You don't understand what love is," he countered, the fire of his conviction burning brighter. "You are just pretending to be someone you are not." The atmosphere crackled with tension as the guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Charles looked between them, confusion evident on his face. "What are you talking about, Marcus?" he asked, his voice a mixture of concern and frustration. "I am talking about the necklace, Dad. It is my mom's necklace. She stole it from me," Marcus cried, holding up the box for everyone to see. The moment felt pivotal, as the truth threatened to burst forth, unraveling the carefully constructed narrative surrounding the wedding. Jessica's expression turned from anger to a forced calm as she stepped closer to Charles, attempting to sway him with charm. "This is just a misunderstanding," she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Marcus is being dramatic. You know how children can be." "No, this is not a misunderstanding," Marcus shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "She is lying to you, Dad. I saw her take it." The crowd murmured in shock, the tension thickening as they processed the unfolding drama. Charles' expression shifted, uncertainty replacing the joy that had characterized his demeanor just moments before. With a shaky breath, Marcus continued, "I promised my mom I would protect her memory. I will not let you marry someone who does not love you for who you are." Jessica's eyes flashed with irritation, but Marcus could see the cracks beginning to form in her polished facade. She was losing control, and he could feel the tide turning in his favor. As the weight of his words settled in, Marcus realized he had leaped the unknown. He did not know how this would end, but he knew he had to fight for his mother's legacy. The guests watched in stunned silence, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Marcus' heart raced, each beat urging him to push forward, to stand his ground against the looming threat to his family's love. The ceremony that had promised joy and celebration now hung in a delicate balance, and Marcus was determined to steer it toward the truth, even if it meant facing the chaos that awaited him. The moment felt surreal, as the box lid lifted, revealing the ordinary white stone he had replaced the necklace with. A wave of despair washed over him, and he felt his heart sink to his stomach. He had thought he could cover up the loss, but seeing that space where the diamond should have been felt like a crushing blow. His mind raced, battling the realization of Jessica's betrayal and the loss of the cherished connection to his mother. "Dad," he cried out, his voice breaking. "She took my mom's necklace." The words spilled from his lips like a dam bursting, filled with the weight of truth and heartache. The crowd's collective gasp echoed around him, each breath of disbelief amplifying his pain. Charles' eyes widened, and for a brief moment, he seemed to process the enormity of what Marcus was saying. "Marcus, what are you talking about?" Charles asked, his voice laced with confusion. Jessica stepped forward, her demeanor shifting instantly from surprise to anger. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice sharp as she tried to regain control. "He is just a child throwing a tantrum. You can't take him seriously, Charles." Marcus felt his anger rise as Jessica attempted to dismiss his claims. "I am not lying," he shouted, his heart racing. "You took it from me." Tension in the air escalated as whispers of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Guests exchanged glances, trying to make sense of the unfolding drama. Some looked skeptical, while others appeared sympathetic to Marcus, sensing the authenticity of his distress. "Marcus, calm down," Charles urged, his voice steady but laced with concern. "Let's talk about this. I am sure there is a reasonable explanation." "Reasonable explanation?" Marcus shot back, feeling the frustration boil over. Jessica's eyes flashed with irritation, but Marcus could see her true colors emerging. "Dad, please," Marcus pleaded, tears still streaming down his face. "You have to believe me. She took the necklace because it meant something to me, to us. It is a piece of jewelry and part of my mom." Marcus felt an overwhelming wave of determination wash over him at that moment. He had to fight for the love and connection his mother had instilled in him. Charles hesitated, caught between his love for Jessica and his son's raw honesty. Marcus could see the conflict written on his father's face, which terrified and motivated him. "Jessica, is this true?" Charles asked, his voice steady but filled with doubt. In that instant, Jessica, realizing the walls were closing in, attempted to regain her composure. "Of course not. He is just a child who doesn't understand," she snapped. "You know how kids can exaggerate. This is simply a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Marcus echoed, feeling the heat of anger rising in his chest. "You stole my mom's necklace. It is worth millions, and you only care about the money." The guests were now fully engaged, leaning in to catch every word of the unfolding drama. The illusion of perfection surrounding the ceremony began to crumble, exposing the raw truth lurking beneath. "Enough!" Jessica shouted, her voice filled with frustration as she attempted to regain control. "You are making this all about yourself, Marcus. I can't believe you would stoop so low." Her desperation only heightened the tension, and the crowd shifted uncomfortably, sensing Jessica's carefully constructed image unraveling. "Dad, please," Marcus begged, tears still streaming down his face. "You have to see her for who she is. She doesn't care about you, about us. She wants your money." As silence enveloped the venue, Marcus' heart raced. He felt the guests' eyes upon him, and for a moment, it felt as though the world had stopped. He knew he had to push forward, to stand his ground against the looming threat to his family's love. Charles' expression shifted, uncertainty creeping in as he entered the scene. The love he felt for Jessica began to clash with the loyalty he held for his son. He stood there, grappling with the weight of Marcus' accusations, and Marcus could see the moment of realization dawning upon him. "Jessica, what do you have to say?" Charles asked, his voice steady but tinged with doubt. In that instant, Marcus knew he had fought for what was right. The battle for his mother's legacy was far from over, but he had taken the first step toward unveiling the truth. And as the tension hung in the air, he felt a flicker of hope, knowing that the love he fought for was worth every tear and every ounce of courage he possessed. As the crowd turned to watch the confrontation unfold, Marcus felt his emotions spiral out of control. The moment's weight pressed down on him, the reality of Jessica's deception crashing over him like a tidal wave. His heart raced and panic rose within him as he realized the gravity of the situation. The heart-shaped diamond necklace, a valuable art piece sought after by burglars, was now in Jessica's possession. In a moment of clarity, Marcus made a decision that sent a jolt of fear through him. He had to call 911 to report the theft, hoping to bring attention to Jessica's deception. As he pulled his phone from his pocket, the weight of his decision hung heavy in the air. He was about to make a call that could change everything. The call that would expose Jessica and perhaps shatter his father's dreams. His fingers trembled as he dialed, the screen lighting up as the operator answered. 911, what is your emergency? Hello? Marcus stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to report a theft. My mom's diamond necklace has been stolen at my dad's wedding." "Okay, calm down." Can you tell me what happened? He explained how Jessica had taken the necklace from him, dismissing his feelings and playing the role of the perfect fiancée. The urgency in his voice resonated through the line as he detailed the circumstances surrounding the theft, hoping to convey the seriousness of the situation. Meanwhile, Jessica's facade began to crack as she realized what Marcus was doing. Her expression shifted from irritation to panic, and the confidence that had once defined her demeanor faded. She stepped closer to Charles, putting on a dramatic act. "What is going on, Charles?" she asked, feigning concern as she glanced at Marcus. "This is just a silly misunderstanding, right? He is just a kid trying to ruin our special day." Her desperation became palpable, and Marcus could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface. She was losing control, and the crowd's shifting loyalties only fueled her panic. "Marcus, stop this," Charles said, turning his full attention to his son. "This is not the time or place for this nonsense. You are embarrassing yourself." "No, Dad. I'm trying to protect you," Marcus insisted, his heart racing. "She is lying to you. You don't even see it." As the operator continued to ask questions, Marcus felt the moment's urgency heighten. He needed to make sure the authorities understood the gravity of the situation. "I am serious. The necklace is a priceless heirloom. It has been in my family for generations." "Marcus, you are making a scene," Jessica interjected, her voice rising. "Stop this right now before you ruin everything." "Everything is already ruined," Marcus shouted, his emotions boiling over. "You think this is just a wedding? This is about my family, my mother. You don't belong here." At that moment, the operator's voice broke through his turmoil. "We are sending an officer to your location. Please stay on the line." Marcus took a shaky breath, feeling a mixture of relief and fear. He had taken a stand, and now he had to face the consequences. Jessica's true colors were starting to show, and as the tension escalated, he could see the cracks in her carefully crafted image. "Charles, please listen to me," he pleaded, his voice trembling with emotion. "She doesn't care about you or me. She only wants what she can get from you." Charles' brow furrowed as he looked between Marcus and Jessica, the conflict within him palpable. "Jessica, is there any truth to what he is saying?" he asked, his tone serious. The moment she was hung in the air, charged with anticipation. Jessica's expression shifted from feigned innocence to irritation, her true colors shining. "He is just being a child, trying to get attention," she snapped. "You know how kids are always making things up." "Making things up?" Marcus exclaimed, incredulous. "You have been mean to me since day one." "I'm not lying. Why would I lie about something like this?" Just then, a police officer arrived at the venue, stepping into the scene with an air of authority. "Who called 911? The officer asked, scanning the crowd for the source of the disturbance. "I did," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "I need to report a stolen necklace." The officer nodded, gesturing for Marcus to step forward. As he explained the situation, he felt a surge of hope. He was finally taking control, standing up for his mother's legacy, and protecting the family that meant everything to him. Jessica's eyes widened in panic as she realized the situation was spiraling out of her control. "You don't understand. This is just a misunderstanding," she pleaded, her voice shaking as the officer began to ask questions. Her dramatic act was falling apart, and Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. She had always relied on her charm to manipulate those around her, but now the truth was coming to light. "I will need to speak with you and the boy separately," the officer said, directing a steady gaze at Jessica. As the police officer began to ask questions, Jessica's composure started to slip. Panic flickered in her eyes, and the desperation was palpable. Suddenly, in a moment of unexpected vulnerability, she blurted out, "Fine. The diamond is in my belongings, but it was given to me by Charles." The shock of her admission reverberated through the crowd like a wave crashing against a rocky shore. Gasps echoed among the guests, their expressions morphing from disbelief to outrage. The truth, once buried beneath layers of deception, was clawing its way to the surface. and Marcus felt a surge of triumph mixed with fear. Charles stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and confusion. "What do you mean it was given to you?" he demanded, his voice strained with disbelief. "How could you deceive us both?" The weight of the situation settled heavily on his shoulders, and the emotional turmoil in his eyes was unmistakable. It was a moment of reckoning, the intersection of love and betrayal laid bare before everyone present. Marcus watched as his father realized this was not the woman he thought he knew. This was a stranger masquerading as a loving fiancée. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Jessica stammered, desperately attempting to salvage her crumbling facade. "You have to believe me, Charles. We could share it, and that would bring us closer. I thought you understood." But her words fell flat against the weight of her actions. The crowd shifted, uncertainty rippling through the attendees as they witnessed the confrontation unfold. Whispers of disbelief coursed through the air, filling the space with tension. "Share it?" Marcus echoed incredulously, unable to contain his anger. "You stole it. You took it from me. This is not about sharing. It is about manipulation." Charles' gaze remained locked on Jessica, the look of hurt in his eyes intensifying. "You deceived my son, and you deceived me," he said, his voice trembling. "I can't believe you would stoop this low." Jessica's expression twisted from frustration to desperation. "I did it for us," she pleaded. "I thought it would help us. I never meant for any of this to happen." Sensing the emotional upheaval, the officer stepped forward and directed his attention to Jessica. "I need to ask you some questions about the necklace and your involvement in this situation," he said firmly. As the officer spoke, Marcus felt a mix of relief and apprehension. The truth was finally coming to light, but the fallout was far from over. Jessica's lies had created a tangled web of deceit, and now they were all trapped in its grip. The police officer began to make statements, and Marcus could feel the atmosphere shift around him. The guests who had once cheered for the couple were now witnesses to the unraveling of a carefully crafted illusion. The whispers of disbelief grew louder as people exchanged knowing glances, many realizing they had sensed something off about Jessica all along. Amid the chaos, Marcus glanced at his father, whose expression was a mixture of betrayal and heartbreak. Charles' love for Jessica had been genuine, but now it was overshadowed by the weight of her deception. As the reality of the situation settled in, Marcus felt a surge of empathy for his father. This was a man who had tried to find happiness after losing his wife, and now he faced the painful truth that the woman he had chosen to love was not who she seemed. After an eternity, the officer turned to Marcus and Charles, addressing them seriously. "We need to follow up on this matter, but I believe it would benefit you two to retrieve the diamond and any evidence from your home. We must have everything we need to proceed with this investigation." Charles nodded, the gravity of the situation settling on his shoulders. "Let's go home," he said quietly, turning to Marcus. "We need to confront this head-on." They passed a moment of understanding, a silent agreement that they would face this challenge together. They had been caught in a storm of emotions, but now they had a clear path forward. The bond they shared, forged in the face of adversity, gave Marcus the strength he needed to face the uncertain future. As they left the venue, the day's weight hung heavy on their hearts. Marcus glanced back at the chaos they were leaving behind. Whispers and murmurs of disbelief now replaced the laughter that had once filled the air. The fairy tale wedding had transformed into a nightmare, and he felt a surge of determination to protect the legacy of love his mother had instilled in him. The ride home was filled with a tense silence. Marcus stared out the window, lost in thought as the world blurred by. Memories of his mother flooded his mind, her laughter echoing in his ears. He could almost hear her voice, reminding him of the importance of truth and loyalty. Marcus felt a mix of dread and anticipation when they finally arrived home. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the chance to confront the reality of the situation and reclaim what had been lost. He knew the diamond represented more than just jewelry. It was a connection to his mother, a symbol of love he would fight to protect. As they stepped inside, Marcus was washed by the familiar sights and sounds of home. The walls held memories of laughter and warmth, but now they felt tense. Marcus turned to Charles, who looked resolute. "Let's find that necklace," he said, his voice steady. Together, they moved through the house, searching for clues leading them to the diamond. The weight of their task loomed large, but they were united in their purpose. They would confront Jessica's deception, reclaim their family legacy, and honor the memory of the woman who had shaped their lives. The journey ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face whatever lay in store. "Let's hurry," Charles said, his voice steady despite the turmoil that had engulfed their day. The determination in his eyes mirrored Marcus' resolve, and together they raced inside. "I wish Mom were here," he said suddenly, the thought slipping from his lips before he could catch it. Charles paused for a moment, looking up with a soft expression. "Me too, buddy," he said, a hint of sadness in his voice. She wouldn't know what to do. The acknowledgement hung between them, reminding Marcus of the strength his mother had given them both. Just then they heard a faint thud from the living room, and both of their heads snapped toward the sound. "What was that?" Marcus whispered, a sense of dread creeping over him. "I don't know," Charles replied, his voice low as he glanced around the kitchen. "Stay close." They moved cautiously into the living room, scanning the area for any sign of trouble. The familiar sight of their home suddenly felt foreign, the shadows seeming to stretch longer as anxiety settled in. As they approached the sofa, Marcus caught sight of something glimmering beneath the cushions. A flash of hope ignited within him. "Over here!" he exclaimed, rushing to the sofa. He pulled the cushions aside, revealing a small, shimmering object. "It is just a coin," he muttered, disappointment flooding over him. Charles frowned, his brow furrowed with worry. "We need to keep looking," he said, scanning the room for other clues. "We don't have much time." As they continued to search, every drawer they opened, and every cabinet they rifled through, seemed to mock their desperation. Time felt like it was slipping away, and the pressure mounted as they realized the stakes were higher than ever. They couldn't let Jessica win. They had to find the diamond before the police arrived. Just as they uncovered clues to the diamond's whereabouts, a note with a heart drawing, there was a sudden, firm knock on the door. Marcus' heart sank. "That is them," he whispered, panic rising. "Stay calm," Charles instructed, though the tension in his voice betrayed his anxiety. "We will handle this. Just follow my lead." As they moved toward the door, Marcus' mind raced with possibilities. What would happen if the police confronted them about Jessica's accusations? Would they believe him, or would they side with her? The uncertainty gnawed at him, and he clenched his fists, trying to steady himself. Charles opened the door to reveal two police officers standing on the porch, their expressions solemn. "Good afternoon," one of them said, a man in a dark blue uniform with a badge shining on his chest. "We received a call regarding a theft. Can we come in?" Yes, of course," Charles replied, stepping aside to let them enter. Marcus followed closely behind, his heart racing as he braced for the confrontation ahead. "Can you tell us what happened?" the officer asked, his gaze shifting between Marcus and Charles. We were just..." Marcus began, but Charles cut in smoothly. "My son believes that there has been a misunderstanding involving a necklace that was stolen from him." The officers exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. "Can you describe the necklace?" the second officer asked, taking notes on a small notepad. "It is a heart-shaped diamond necklace, precious," Charles said, trying to keep his voice steady. "It belonged to my late wife, and we think it is in the possession of my fiancée, Jessica." The officer's reaction to Jessica's name was immediate. "Do you have any proof of this theft?" the first officer asked. Before Charles could respond, Marcus stepped forward, his pulse quickening. "She stole it from me. She said she was borrowing it but wanted it for herself." His voice trembled, filled with urgency. "You have to believe me." The officers studied Marcus' face, and for a moment he felt as if he were standing alone under the weight of their scrutiny. "We will need to speak with Jessica as well," the second officer said. "If the necklace is indeed in her possession, we must assess the situation further." The tension in the room was thick as they stood, waiting for the inevitable confrontation with Jessica. Marcus could sense that time was running out. They needed to find the diamond and confront the lies before they were lost forever. As they prepared to leave the house and search for Jessica, the adrenaline pumping through Marcus' veins fueled his determination. He would not let fear hold him back. This was their chance to reclaim what had been stolen, to protect their family's legacy, and to stand together against the manipulation that had threatened to tear them apart. With a resolute nod from Charles, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The search for the diamond had become more than a quest for an heirloom. It was a fight for truth, love, and preserving their family bond. Marcus' heart raced as he recalled the last time he had seen the necklace, that beautiful heart-shaped diamond that symbolized everything his mother had cherished. "Marcus," one of the officers said, pulling him from his thoughts, "can you recall where you last saw the necklace?" "Yes," Marcus exclaimed, the memory rushing back to him. "I remember it clearly. It was in my mom's jewelry box in my room. I showed it to Jessica before the wedding, and then she took it from me." Charles looked at his son with pride and concern. "Let's go, Marcus. Lead the way." With renewed hope coursing through him, Marcus rushed toward the staircase, his mind focused on the treasure he needed to recover. They raced up the stairs, each step bringing them closer to the heirloom that represented his mother's legacy and their shared love. As they reached the door to Marcus' room, he felt a surge of determination. This was their chance to reclaim what had been taken, restore their bond, and protect the love his mother had fought so hard to nurture. "Here it is," Marcus said, swinging the door open to reveal his room. It was cluttered with toys and books, remnants of his childhood still scattered around. "It was right on my dresser." He hurried over to the dresser, his heart pounding in anticipation. But as he rummaged through the drawers, his excitement turned to despair. "It is not here," he exclaimed, a wave of panic crashing over him. "I don't understand. It should be here." Charles stepped beside him, glancing at the disarray. "Think, Marcus. Where else could it be? Did you show it to anyone else?" Marcus racked his brain, trying to piece together the fragments of the past few chaotic days. "No, just Jessica. But I remember seeing it. It was right here." His frustration mounted as he pulled out a stack of papers and tossed them aside. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Jessica was in her turmoil. Realizing that the walls were closing in and that the police were actively searching for her, she made a calculated decision to slip away. Her heart raced as she quietly exited the room, weaving through the chaos of their home, determined to escape the mess she had created. Jessica had always been resourceful, and her instincts told her that her freedom depended on outsmarting everyone involved. With the police distracted and Marcus and Charles engrossed in their search, she seized the opportunity. A sense of relief washed over her as she slipped out the back door. She had to find a way to disappear, to keep the diamond, and escape the consequences of her actions. As Marcus and Charles continued their frantic search, they were unaware of Jessica's escape. The tension mounted with each passing moment, the weight of their discovery hanging in the air. "Marcus, think," Charles urged, his voice firm but gentle. "Is there anywhere else you might have left it? A place where you could have hidden it?" Marcus' mind raced. "Wait," he exclaimed, a sudden realization washing over him. "I remember I took it outside to show it to my friend once. I think I left it near the old tree in the backyard." "Let's go," Charles said, a renewed sense of urgency fueling their movements. They dashed down the stairs and out the back door, Marcus leading the way. The familiar sights of their backyard felt different now, charged with a sense of purpose as they raced toward the old oak tree. As they approached the tree, Marcus' heart pounded in his chest. "It was right here," he said, scanning the ground. "I'm sure of it. I put it down for just a second. It has to be here." They searched the area, feeling the rush of adrenaline as the weight of time pressed heavily upon them. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard as they looked for any sign of the necklace. Come on, Marcus muttered under his breath, desperation creeping into his voice. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Marcus glanced at Charles, and at that moment, they both understood that they needed to act fast. The tension in the air was palpable as they continued to search, adrenaline surging through their veins. Meanwhile, Jessica had made it to the front of the house, a sneer of satisfaction on her lips. She had escaped, but the risk of being discovered lingered like a dark cloud. As she reached her car parked on the street, she felt a pang of anxiety mixed with exhilaration. The diamond was hers, and she was determined to keep it, no matter the cost. As Marcus and Charles scoured the ground near the tree, they heard voices approaching from the direction of the house. The police officers had arrived, their footsteps echoing as they entered the backyard. "This is not good," Marcus whispered, his heart racing as the sound grew closer. "Stay calm," Charles instructed, eyes scanning the area for any sign of the necklace. "We just need a few more moments." As hope faded, Marcus spotted something shimmering near the tree's roots. His heart leaped as he rushed toward it, kneeling to pick up a small object. "Dad, I found something," he called out, his voice tinged with excitement. Charles hurried over, his breath catching as Marcus held up a glimmering piece of jewelry. "Is this the necklace, Dad?" But their moment of triumph was short-lived. As the officers approached, they exchanged concerned glances, sensing that something was off. This was not the diamond necklace his mother had. The urgency in the air shifted, and Marcus' heart sank as he realized the stakes were rising. "It is probably with Jessica," he thought aloud, realizing his slip. They were racing against time to reclaim the diamond and uncover the truth that Jessica's lies had obscured. The police were closing in, and Marcus knew their confrontation's climax was only beginning. Jessica stumbled through the underbrush, her heart racing as she fled into the woods, clutching the diamond tightly in her hand. The sound of sirens faded into the distance, and she felt a rush of relief for a moment. She had escaped the chaos of the wedding, outsmarted the police, and seized the diamond that she believed would secure her future. The weight of the diamond felt heavy in her palm, a precious artifact that symbolized her triumph. "I did what I had to do," she whispered, trying to silence the nagging voice that reminded her of the deceit she had woven. But as she pressed deeper into the woods, the shadows around her began to feel more oppressive, the weight of her actions heavier. Suddenly, the serene quiet of the forest was shattered by rustling in the trees. Jessica's heart lurched as tension gripped her. She paused, straining to hear, her breath coming in quick gasps. Was it the police? Had they found her already? She tried to back away, but the sound grew closer, and before she could fully process the situation, a tall figure emerged from the shadows. The man was rugged, his face obscured by the dim light filtering through the branches, but the gun he brandished was unmistakable. Panic surged through Jessica as she took a step back, her heart pounding against her chest. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling despite her attempt to sound authoritative. "Just someone who wants to chat," he replied, his tone low and menacing. The glint of the gun sent a chill down her spine, and the realization hit her like a freight train she was not alone, and she had underestimated the danger she was in. Before she could react, the man lunged forward, grabbing her by the arm and dragging her deeper into the woods. "Let go of me!" she screamed, panic rising within her as she struggled against his grip. The fabric of her wedding dress caught on branches and thorns, ripping as she fought to break free. But the man was strong, and his grip tightened around her wrist. "Stop struggling, or it will only get worse for you," he warned, his voice icy. Fear coursed through Jessica as she realized she was entirely at his mercy. As they moved further into the dense trees, Jessica's mind raced with thoughts of escape. She needed to get away, to find help, but all she could think about was the diamond still clutched tightly in her hand. It was her lifeline, her ticket to freedom, and she couldn't let it slip away. The man's grip slipped slightly in the chaos, and Jessica took her chance. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, she freed her arm and sprinted away from him, her wedding dress billowing behind her like a ghostly veil. "Help! Someone help me!" she screamed, echoing through the trees. But as she ran, she heard the crack of branches snapping behind her, the sound of pursuit closing in. The woods felt alive with danger, every rustle and whisper amplifying her fear. She had to keep moving to put as much distance between herself and the man as possible. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a stream, its waters glimmering in the fading light. Without thinking, she darted to the edge, desperate to escape. In her panic, the diamond slipped from her fingers, falling into the water with a soft splash. She gasped, watching in horror, as the diamond disappeared beneath the surface, the sparkling light extinguished instantly. "No! No!" she cried, her heart sinking as she watched it vanish. The loss of the diamond felt like a death knell, symbolizing the collapse of her carefully constructed deception. At that moment, the weight of her choices bore down, and she realized how easily everything had unraveled. Just as she was about to dive into the water, trying to salvage her precious prize, the man emerged from the trees, fury etched on his face. "You're not getting away that easily," he shouted, lunging toward her. Jessica turned to run again but slipped on the muddy bank, falling hard to the ground. The cool earth pressed against her skin, and she scrambled to her feet, but it was too late. The man was upon her, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her back. "Let go of me," she screamed, panic flooding her voice as she fought against him. But the more she struggled, the tighter his grip became until she felt herself dragged away from the stream and deeper into the forest's shadows. "Stop. You are making this harder for yourself," he growled, his eyes glinting with anger and something darker. Jessica felt her heart race with fear as she realized this was no ordinary confrontation. She had stumbled into something more significant than herself. As they moved further into the woods, the sound of the stream faded behind them, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Jessica's thoughts raced as she tried to devise a plan, desperately seeking an opportunity to escape. The realization that the diamond was lost forever began to sink in, a crushing weight that felt insurmountable. But amidst the panic and chaos, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She would not let herself be taken without a fight. Gathering her strength, she kicked out at the man's leg, catching him off guard for just a moment. He stumbled, and she seized the opportunity to break free, sprinting deeper into the trees. "Get back here!" he yelled, his voice echoing through the woods as he pursued her. Jessica ran mindlessly, branches whipping against her skin, her heart pounding in her ears. She had to escape to find safety, but the shadows felt overwhelming, and the uncertainty of her fate loomed large. As she darted through the trees, she could hear the rustling of leaves and the sound of footsteps closing in behind her. Panic surged within her, but there was no turning back. She had to keep moving and outsmart the man who sought to capture her. The darkness began to close around her, the once familiar woods transforming into a maze of uncertainty. But in that moment of fear, Jessica knew that her survival depended on her wits and her will to escape. As she pushed herself to run faster, she realized she was not just running from the man, but also fleeing the consequences of her choices, the weight of her actions finally catching up with her. Tension mounted as the trees thickened around her, and she could feel the man gaining ground. In the chaos, she spotted a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. With no other option, she took a sharp turn, hoping to lose him in the labyrinth of trees. But as she ran, she couldn't shake the feeling that her time was running out. The weight of her deception hung over her like a dark cloud, and she knew she would have to face the truth sooner or later. The stakes had never felt higher, and as the darkness enveloped her, she could only hope she would find a way to outsmart the danger ahead. Back at the house, Marcus and Charles sat in the living room, the silence hanging heavy in the air. They had just returned from their chaotic encounter with the police, and the weight of everything that had transpired pressed down on them. The laughter and joy that had filled their home earlier that day felt like a distant memory, replaced by the harsh reality of betrayal and loss. "I can't believe how quickly everything fell apart," Charles said, shaking his head as he stared out the window, lost in thought. I thought Jessica was the one, but I was wrong. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of his father's heartbreak. She fooled us both, he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil. But Dad, I am glad we are doing this together. I couldn't have faced it alone. Charles turned to his son, a faint smile breaking through the sadness. Neither could I, Marcus. You stood up for what was right, and I am proud of you. In that moment, amidst the ruins of the day, they found solace in their bond. The chaos around them had only strengthened their connection, reinforcing the importance of family. They realized that no matter what happened, they had each other, and that was a powerful reminder of the love that transcended the turmoil. After a long pause, Marcus looked up, determination sparking in his eyes. We can't let this end without trying to get the diamond back. I know it is gone, but it means everything to me, Dad. Charles nodded thoughtfully, understanding the weight the necklace carried for his son. You are right. It is not just about the diamond, but about what it represents: your mom's love and our family's legacy. The following day, after a restless night filled with dreams of his mother, Marcus and Charles decided to revisit where the diamond had fallen. They drove to the edge of the woods, memories of yesterday's chaos still fresh. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the path as they walked toward the stream, their hearts filled with hope and uncertainty. As they approached the water, Marcus felt a knot in his stomach. Would they find the diamond? Would it still be there, waiting for them to reclaim it? He glanced at his father, who seemed equally lost in thought, his brow furrowed with determination. Let's wade in a bit, Charles suggested, stepping carefully into the shallow water. The coolness of the stream sent a shiver up Marcus' spine, but he welcomed it as they moved deeper, searching for any sign of the heirloom. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and Marcus scanned the stream, his heart racing with anticipation. Each ripple seemed to tease him, promising the possibility of finding what they had lost. Do you remember when we used to come here with Mom? Marcus asked, trying to distract himself from the growing anxiety. She would bring her sketchbook and sit by the water for hours. Charles smiled softly, nostalgia lighting up his features. Yeah, she always found inspiration here. She loved the way the light danced on the water. As they continued to search, the conversation flowed easily between them, a welcome distraction from the heaviness of the situation. They shared stories and laughter, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Then, just as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Marcus caught a glimmer beneath the surface. His heart raced as he bent down, squinting for a better look. Dad! Over here, he shouted, excitement bubbling to the surface. Charles rushed over, his eyes widening as he followed Marcus' gaze. Is that it? He asked, hope igniting within him. Marcus reached into the water, his fingers trembling as he grasped the object. As he pulled it out, the sun caught the diamond, making it shine brilliantly. It is the diamond! We found it, he exclaimed, holding it up triumphantly. Their eyes met, and a smile spread across their faces, a mix of joy and relief washing over them. At that moment, it felt like they had reclaimed the physical object and the bond threatened by betrayal. I can't believe it, Charles said, shaking his head in disbelief. After everything, we found it. Yeah, Marcus replied, his heart swelling with pride. We did this together. The triumph of the moment hung in the air, but as they stood there, distant screams echoed through the woods. A chill ran down Marcus' spine, and he turned to his father, a sense of unease creeping back in. Do you think that is? Charles started, but the words faded into silence. They both knew who those screams belonged to. Jessica was still out there, her fate uncertain, but the consequences of her actions were now clear. The diamond sparkled in Marcus' hand, a stark reminder of the chaos left behind. It symbolized not just their victory, but also the fragility of trust and the impact of deception. As they stood by the water, the realities of the past few days washed over them, blending into the bittersweet ending of a tumultuous chapter. Whatever happens next, we will face it together, Charles said, placing a reassuring hand on Marcus' shoulder. We have learned the importance of standing by each other, and that bond is stronger than any diamond. Marcus nodded, feeling a sense of determination fill him once more. Armed with the love and strength that his mother had instilled in him, he was ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. As they walked back toward the car, the diamond secure in Marcus' pocket, the echoes of Jessica's distant screams faded into the background. They were ready to move forward, united in their resolve to honor the memory of the woman who had shaped their lives and to ensure that her legacy would endure. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but in the end, they had emerged stronger. Together, they would continue to navigate the complexities of love and loyalty, facing whatever lay ahead with courage and hope. And that is how a young boy's fight for truth and love transformed into a journey of resilience and healing. Do you think Marcus made the right choice in standing up against deception? What was your favorite moment in his story? And how do you feel about the bond he shares with his father, Charles? Will they be able to move forward after the turmoil they faced? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this gripping tale of betrayal and family strength resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that delve into the complexities of human emotion. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again for our following powerful narrative.